Hi, my name's Brandon Southall. I'm a marine mammal researcher and bioacoustician. I have a small consulting business, Southall Environmental Associates. I work with the University of California, Santa Cruz, Duke University, and the nonprofit California Ocean Alliance. And for 6 years, I ran NOAA's Ocean Acoustics program. So I've seen the MMPA up close and have continued to appreciate it over the 30 years that I've worked in this field. It's meant a lot to my career. It means a lot that the species that we work on are recognized as being particularly important. Not many other taxa have their own law, and that has meant a lot to the work that I do and to the protection of marine mammals. And I'm just very thankful that it was passed and that it has persisted for 50 years, and hope that it continues to evolve and protect marine species. The MMPA supported the work that I've done, I think, by making a lot of it necessary. A lot of the research that I do is funded by entities that produce sound in the ocean. And those entities, if there wasn't a law there that required them to understand why and how they were affected by those activities, that work probably wouldn't happen, or wouldn't happen to the extent that it is and should happen. So I think a lot of the work that I have done to understand noise impacts and write and produce noise criteria has been necessitated by the fact that industries and government agencies and all those that put sound into the ocean or other forms of disturbance are required under the MMPA to support that kind of work. And I think conversely, the work that I've done has directly supported the Marine Mammal Protection Act by informing the way that it's implemented. So the science that I've done in the lab, through hearing studies in the field, through behavioral response studies, has produced some original science, some of the first such measurements of temporary threshold shift, of behavioral responses of endangered and protected species, to Navy sonar, to seismic surveys, new types of sounds associated with offshore wind. Those are directly applicable and have been implemented into broad noise criteria, and they've also been included in decisions regarding how those activities are managed. And I've had the fortune of working directly with people inside NOAA when I was employed by the agency, and since, to try and use the best available science to implement the requirements under the Marine Mammal Protection Act. The science that's been done in the 50 years since the MMPA has been passed is vast. I think in my immediate field of sound impacts, we've gone from, in probably just half of that time, from not having very much information at all about even how do animals differ and how they hear things, to having increasingly fine scale predictions about how they hear things, how they're affected by noise in the ocean, and we've learned some really fundamental things about how they may respond to sound, that it's not just about how loud that sound is, but other things like what they're doing at the time. The spatial interactions can be really important. The behavioral context of what they're doing is really important. So our understanding of that specific issue of sound impacts has really become very enriched and increasingly sophisticated, again, largely because of science that's been required because of the conservation and protection of the Marine Mammal Protection Act. And then in terms of priorities for the future, I think we have to realize that not everything is guaranteed. We have to ensure that the Marine Mammal Protection Act and the Endangered Species Act and other laws continue to exist. There's political reasons to think that some of these protections are not guaranteed. So I think there's continuing to ensure that these laws exist in the future is a fundamental kind of a thing. In terms of how they're they're implemented, I think we've realized that the pace at which science turns into guidance, turns into regulation, turns into implementation is increasingly slower than change can happen. And we need faster and leaner and more adaptive ways of actually doing adaptive management. And I think that the MMPA should be increasingly specific about what adaptive management means and how it's implemented on timescales that match the kinds of changes that we're seeing associated with climate change or variability in natural ecosystems, ways of identifying particularly vulnerable species or vulnerable stocks or populations. So it needs to become probably a little bit more nimble, and we're increasingly getting science to do that. So thank you very much. Thank you to all the people that originally passed the MMPA, and thank you to those that are continuing to fight and see that it protects and supports conservation of marine mammals into the future.